Welcome to the Teacher Squad podcast, episode 2.
I'm Heather Wright.
And I'm Jane Considine.
This week I'm going to be talking about Instagram perfect displays.
And I'll be chatting about back to work routines.
We've got a great interview with Andrew Taylor all about ECTs.
And what about sponges at PTA fetes? What's that all about?
Shall we get straight to it?
Yeah, great.
So Jane, shall we get started with some gratitude? Do you think you've got the vibe of it now? You're ready to,
Give
get
it
into
a
the mood?
go. I'll give it a go. I'll try not to moan. Come on then. You go first, actually. Warm me up.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Oh, no, what? Come on, I'll give it a go. Look.
Go on.
I can do this. Okay. My glimmer little shimmer is actually, I am so goddamn grateful that we're back at school, we're back at work, because I love the way I can manipulate this into a moan.
That's not the idea, Jane. Keep it positive.
Well, I love the rhythm of work. I love back to school, back to uni, back to routine. And this is a bit of a mum dump because the school holidays are just so emotionally exhausting. I feel like I'm pulled from pillar to post, and like there's all this mum guilt, like hashtag making memories, and I'm like hashtag making arguments, hashtag tension. That's my house sometimes, and just the amount of washing up, and yes, I've got a dishwasher, but like this seems to be washing up as well, and just like the constant meals, and actually I really love going back to work. And like you do obviously are anxious in the run up to it, but once you're in the rhythm of it, I actually get a big kick out of laying my clothes out the night before, and then all the little weird and kooky things I'm going to do in the morning, because I'm going to have some collagen tablets because I'm trying to grow my hair. Like this is a visual thing. This is what you have got in YouTube. See my real hair, in my non-work mode hair, party hair, wild hair. It's curly, and I've got naturally curly hair, so it doesn't grow down; it grows out. It's crazy, but and actually, I love looking at my work diary, seeing what's coming up, my list, my ticks, my new stationery, packing my work bag. I actually love it, and that just sounds like I don't like my children.
Oh, no, I can hear your genuine joy there, Jane. Joyful Jane.
Yeah, I am. I'm losing my voice. This is great for a podcast, a bit of laryngitis in the mix. Oh, wow. It's a sexy
You've got your party
husky
hair and your sexy voice.
Go on, babe. I know you're better at this. I'll get you being tragic and moody, though. I will. I'll get you there.
I'm well practiced. I'm going to go for 2 again, but I'm going to be quick with the first one. I'm grateful that people actually tuned in and listened to episode 1 of the Teacher Squad podcast. How exciting.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And we even had some people joining in with gratitude. So Mark Harrington on Instagram, you'll like this, Jane, said, my new class are a breath of fresh air. How nice is that?
Well, it's better than the wind derailleur that we were worrying about, weren't it? So yeah, that is lovely. It is lovely to have that class, isn't it? That class. And you can have that class, but that class is gorgeous, isn't it?
Oh, it's nice, isn't it? Getting to know all the characters and getting, I love that. So thank you for interacting with us. If people want to send us messages and join in the conversation, we love that. And then this is a gratitude. I'm not sure how serious it is now, Jane, but I'm going to go with it because I was grateful for my Who Gives a Crap delivery.
Who gives a what?
Who gives a crap? It's 100% recycled toilet roll, and we're super organised and we buy it in bulk. But we were coming to the end of our stash of toilet rolls. So, when you've got like loads of toilet rolls in the house and you go all Andrex puppy and you're like, yeah, I can use loads. No, 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 we were at the other end of the spectrum where you're looking at it and going, no, just one sheet, and you become some kind of like toilet paper origami ninja. And then, literally, as the last roll was about to be finished, there was the delivery driver
Oh,
with
amazing.
the massive box of beautiful, eco friendly toilet roll, and it brought me some joy.
Yeah, well, it is the little things they say, Heather, and I'm not going to say any more jokes about that, but I will tell you this story of my youngest, Oscar. The reception teacher pulled me over for a chat, and and said, "Oh, can you just have a little word with Oscar, or a little finding out? He's spending a lot of time in the toilet. Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. He doesn't do that at home. Don't get it. What's going on?" So I had a little chat with Oscar, and I'm like, What is this all about? How come you're so long in the loo?" And he said, "Well, Mum, you you taught me because we were he's a summer born boy. Do you know what I mean? And we had to do a lot of toilet habits, and so we trained him to go to the loo and do 3 wipes and a wish." And he said he said he was in there so long because he didn't know what to wish for. I mean, he did a
Oh,
lot of pooing, obviously, and he'd, like, was running out of things. He had the Lego
three
set he
wipes and
wanted.
a wish. I wonder where you got that from. Did you have a stamper for him as well?
Oh god.
Feedback in
Kids.
the bathroom.
Yeah, all of that jazz.
Maybe
Oh,
we should move on from gratitude, Jane. Let's
yeah,
go to our sentences. You
yeah,
can go first on this one. What's your
okay.
sentence of the week, Jane? Can you sum it up?
I'll try. Okay, it's this, and, it it just it feels like there's still for parents and families like this residue of trauma from like exam season and just pressure on kids, I suppose. And so my sentence is this: in school they teach you a lesson and give you a test, but the real world gives you a test and teaches you a lesson. and
No.
and even though, you know, the high stake exams and particularly A levels are kind of, you know, like the end of the teaching journey is kind of over. I think there's still a lot of hurt around. And I think it's been really hard for lots of people. And it's been actually really brutal, you know, because on a national level in England, we've kind of gone back to pre pandemic level. And it's like I've got a niece and a neighbour and a friend of one of the kids who, you know, like I'm meeting them at events now, and it's like down the line, and there's kind of still struggling and haven't quite got on the apprenticeship, or, you know, there was one of the girls who she got an A star and an A and a B, and she wanted to go to medical school, but she was 2 marks off an A. And then she got it remarked and it got bumped up by 1 mark. And then she still didn't
Ah,
get in. And I just, honestly, it's really sad. And you just think, you want to go, you're amazing. You're a brainiac. You're just done so well. But it's just, I think she's just hanging on for that remark. And she's like, I've been hurt twice. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, it's just like broke my heart a bit. And then there's another lad who, you know, lives down the street. It's just such, he like walks everybody's dogs. He's just gorgeous. And but he's not getting paid for it. He's just been a really lovely lad,
Ah,
really nice kid. And he got predicted an A, and he got nowhere near. And it's tough. And you know, the pathways to apprenticeships, I do think it's really muddy. We need like a like UCAS local apprenticeship documents of like everything that's on offer in your area, and it's not there. And it's just like, well, you work it out. And it's just like, you know, there's not a proper database. And yeah, I just think it's, and I think it's also within that A level messaging. It's like we know that the South did loads better than the North, and there's this like this north south divide, and disadvantage students. yeah, they are 73% more likely to go to university than in 2010. But there's still, for me, so much that we've got to do with the north south divide and opportunities. And then, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. I was reading about this uh, that 3,820 kids got 3 A stars. And but the breakdown of that in gender kind of wise, um, girls are doing better than boys, with 55% of them getting those 3 A stars. I mean, there's just some incredible kids out there, isn't there? And then there's my niece who didn't make it, but she's got a job at Weatherspoons. Oh, God, love her, and the tears and the cuddles. But she's just going to be the most amazing human being. So it's just, I think families are still on the struggle bus with that, I suppose, Heather. And then it's actually a lot of these children still need a lot of support. You know, that back to uni, back to college, an apprenticeship. It's like, actually, some people are still trying to work it all out, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, how do you think we should be supporting that journey kind of earlier on? Do you think that in primaries we talk about apprenticeships? I know that they're not in the position to make those choices for the rest of their life.
Mm.
Do you think we should be kind of talking more about those options further
Yeah.
down?
Yeah, I think we should. And just like the wealth of jobs, we can be very stereotypical and very narrow, um, you know, about, one of, there's just so many fabulous jobs, you can design ice creams and ice lollies. It's just like, that's like one out of thousands, thousands, thousands. And I just think sometimes we are a bit narrow in how we talk about adulting, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously in primary, kids, they just want to be famous and footballers. And I think we need to have that conversation, because like what's the percentage of that then? That you're going to be famous and a footballer. We need to just open their eyes to the breadth of options.
Definitely. I think we're really old fashioned and we're kind of linear and going, and you're going to make this choice, you're going to jump through this hoop, and then for the rest of your life, you're going to have this job. And it's just not the way, is it?
No, especially if you're a teacher, you bugger off after 5 years. That's what the data says anyway.
How do we get out? It's not a topic of conversation on this podcast. We want to
No.
keep you in,
Yeah.
retention,
Yeah,
keep the best ones.
yeah. Oh, of course. We really do want to keep everybody. And it's that always breaks my heart. So when you go back to a school, and if I go on a school visit, and like they've gone to Tesco's. Like I actually get my bus measured at M&S by an ex-teacher.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
She Yeah, but she was good. She left. Oh dear. Your sentence, Heather. Can you sum it up? Can you do better than me, or is it a ramble? I hope you can sum it
It's
up.
always going to be a ramble, but I've summed it up. I've
Good
summed it up.
girl.
So my
Good girl.
sentence this week is done is better than perfect. I think
Lovely.
I'm speaking to myself a little bit as well, but it's kind of around. There's loads of posts at the moment about beautiful Instagram ready, whether they're reading corners or this display or that display, and I kind of just need to balance out my positivity as well, Jane. I don't want you to keep suggesting that I'm toxic. I can be level as well. And I know, that some people will be looking at those posts and thinking, oh, I can't do mine as good as that. There's no way that mine is going to be that great. And actually, doesn't need to be that great, does it? I mean, we've really got to stop comparing ourselves. I think as teachers, we're kind of, I don't know, nurtured into that mindset of comparing constantly because we're looked at. There's book looks, there's learning walks, there's drop ins, there's lesson observations, and all those things. And we kind of get in that mindset of looking for the negative, and it's conditioning really. What we actually need to do is teach ourselves to look for the positives in what we've achieved, what we've succeeded, the little things, and that spurs us on to go, do you know what, I'm just going to have a crack. I'm going to get that display up, and it's better that it's up and kind of an 8.5 out of 10 than a 10 out of 10. You know, the kids are going to benefit from it, and it's going to do its job, isn't it? Have you ever
Absolutely.
noticed, Jane?
Yeah.
Sorry. Have
Yeah.
you ever noticed that when you start thinking about buying something, like back when you were having your babies and it was like prams, or when you're looking for a new car and suddenly you just spot those things all over the place? You've
Yeah.
experienced that, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a name.
Yeah.
It's called frequency illusion phenomenon. How good's that?
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's called a bugaboo or something like you're going to you spot them everywhere in the colour you didn't choose. Oh, that's
And
fascinating.
it's fascinating, isn't it? And it's about your brain. It's that conditioning. And if you have made your brain aware of that and you're looking out for it, you start spotting it. So it's the same with positives and negatives. You can take yourself on a downward spiral if you keep thinking, well, I didn't do that corner very well, or I should have put
Yeah.
a better word on there, or I didn't finish that marking pile. You start seeking out those negatives. Um, and actually, what we need to train ourselves to do is to take ourselves on an upward spiral and say, well, do you know what? I did actually teach that lesson very well. I did help out a colleague. Do you know what? That's my first attempt, and that display looks absolutely brilliant. We've got to seek out those positives, and the more that we do it,
Yeah.
the better we'll become at it.
Yeah. That coughing in the background, by the way, is Mr. C. So you can take that cough, Mr. C, and clear off if you're going to start coughing. This is my positive thing. I can see my lovely present that Heather bought me. That's so lovely. And then the guilt that I haven't bought you one back, but hey, it was lovely to have it. Oh, you want
That's
to?
how it works in a marriage, isn't it, Jane? You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you're the giver, sometimes you're the receiver.
It's too many jokes there. Right, moving on quickly.
Oh, can I give some tips then? Like if you're
Go on.
thinking about doing displays, then I'm a bit of a procrastination queen. I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but
yeah,
I will wait. So it's a bit of self-awareness, isn't it? And thinking what can I do to help myself get over it?
yeah,
And like whether it's a deadline or whether it's saying to another colleague, I'm thinking of doing this display. Um, I know I'm not going to get my bum into gear unless I do something about it. Can you come and mark in my room, and I'll put the display up whilst you're there?
yeah,
Even
yeah,
little tricks like that can get you going. And maybe thinking about manageable displays. I've seen lots of pictures of displays that maybe like those book ones where there's lots to change and
yeah,
keep up to date. And
yeah,
and is that realistic? You know,
yeah,
what for the outlay of energy is that going
yeah,
to impact on the children? So thinking about, well, maybe I'll just use the photocopied book covers as a border, and then
yeah.
I'll get the kids as pupil librarians to update the display. I think
Oh, that's definitely that. Getting them interacting with it. Those instant kind of book reviews on little post-its. Yeah, definitely. That sort of living, breathing stuff. That's making meaning. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good one.
it'd be good if people are listening and they've got some top tips, especially because our guest today is linked to early careers teachers. If you've got some tips on kind of, you know, getting stuff done, not worrying about how perfect it's going to be, do
Yeah,
get in touch and let us know.
yeah, definitely.
Speaking of guests, did you have
Yes.
something to add, Jane?
What's that?
Did you
Sorry.
have something to add?
Well, I was just saying, I was talking earlier about, you get life gives you a test and teaches you a lesson, and it kind of interlinks with what you're saying about kind of, you know, if you wait for it to be perfect, you'll always just be beating yourself up. But I was 17, and it was when I was 17 I realised. Well, I went out on the Raz, I went out on the absolute lash, and woke up on Sunday with a really bad hangover. And I was completely on the struggle bus. And my mum called me downstairs, and like you everyone knows mum tones, all the compendium of mum tones, and she sat me down to say that the family had rang her yesterday to say that I hadn't turned up to do babysitting job, and her exact words: "I'm not angry, Jane. I'm just disappointed." And I know, and felt so guilt ridden and embarrassed, and obviously I was hungover, and you can't really regulate your emotions very well, and but it was just that recognition that, like, I was at 17, I was trying to wear this kind of spontaneous, roll with it, impromptu kind of creative persona, and I just had to admit at 17 I needed just a boring diary, and I just think that if you're an ECT, or even if you're somebody who's just trying to be a bit bohemian and out there, like Soz, you need a diary. You just need to get it down so that you know when deadlines are coming. And I mean, the deadline's coming. It's in 17 minutes, Heather.
That is totally me. And I've kind of raged against the diary, but I live and breathe by my diary now. I
Yeah,
absolutely can't function without it, and kind of I'll put the deadline in and then go like a few pages back and say, right, you need to do that then to make sure that that happens.
yeah,
Just a bit of organisation helps, doesn't it?
yeah. It really does. It really does. So you have been hinting here that we've got a really exciting guest on the way,
We
um,
certainly have.
and
Shall I tell you a bit about him?
yeah, will you? Will you?
So his name's Andrew Taylor, but we're going to call him Andy because
Great.
we're friends on here, aren't we?
Yeah, we
And
are.
he is a senior lecturer in primary education and has loads of experience as a class teacher and senior leader, and lots of experience as an ECT mentor. So he's written loads of blogs and articles and things like that. But he's well known on Twitter. I'm going to read you his handle. It's at Mr. T's underscore NQTs. And he provides loads of advice and support for early career teachers. And he's written this book. I'm going to remember this week, Jane. I know we are a podcast and it's audio. For those who are watching, you can see it. But it's called You Got This. And it's thriving as an early career teacher with Mr. T. So thanks, Bloomsbury, for providing us with some copies. I think we've got some extra to give away. We need to think of a competition, Jane.
Yeah, don't worry. We've got that in hand. We'll announce that down the line. It
Exciting.
Yeah, so can't wait to meet Mr. T. When I was reading his book, it really struck me that it's almost like a theme running through it, that he loved having I don't know if love is the right word, but he seemed to have a lot of sponges chucked at him at PTA events. I'm like, you must have had the most amount of sponges chucked at you. And then I was thinking, I want to talk to him because I want to see, has he been bullied? Is he all right? Do you know what I mean?
Ah, I'm sure he's fine, but we can talk it through, Jane. Hi, Andy. Welcome to the Teacher Squad podcast.
Hi both, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure to be here, so thank you.
Well, you say that now, wait till the end. We'll be kind to you. Can I warm you up
That's
with a
good.
few fun questions, first of all?
Go for it.
I'm going to take you to the staff room, first of all. I feel like
Yeah.
this might be a question that we do every week, Jane. So you're making your morning brew. I don't know whether you're a tea drinker or a coffee drinker, but it don't matter for this question. On the
On.
choice of biscuits, we've got some hobnobs. They're just plain hobnobs, actually. They're not chocolate covered.
Oh,
And we've got some custard creams. What are you going to go for to take
it's got to
outside
be
and
a
play?
custard. Got to be a custard cream, absolutely, every day of the week.
Oh, custard cream. I know you were dunker.
Actually, no, no, I can't do that. I'm
A
a kind of,
custard
I like to pick
cream.
the biscuit apart. It's a weird thing, when you kind of break the biscuit apart into the two kind of slices, so you take the top off and then eat those. Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
sure we could do some psychological analysis with this. What do you do with
absolutely.
this?
Yeah,
Maybe
we
we
could.
should move
You
on.
can't do that with a hobnob.
So what about your desk? Let me take you to your classroom now. If I look at your desk, is it a messy desk or a tidy desk?
It is tidy, although there will be hidden away either in a cupboard or in a drawer, just a little dumping place where I can put everything that I need to get to at some point, but just to keep the kind of that space clear from my working in.
Oh, I'm so envious of those tidy desk people. It's never happened. I've tried.
There are a couple of times in the during the week, during the terms, where it's harder to keep it tidy, but I do always try because it just feel like you're leaving at the end of the day. Nice tidy desk when you walk in the next morning. It just feels like you're ready for it then.
Yeah,
I
I
like
agree with
that.
that. I
I like
love
that.
that. I'm just imagining this drawer. I hope it's got a bit of a ball of blue tack in it and a
Absolutely, it's a few random staples that don't fit any stapler that I have. One of those kind of
oh
drawers.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love it.
One
Uh,
more question to warm you up.
go
Oh,
on
it's
then.
PPA. It's PPA. And someone's covering
Yes.
your class. What are you going to leave them?
Oh, what would I leave them?
Maybe your least
Probably
favourite. Jane's
music.
going to leave them music, I think. Did you say music?
I did say music. I would leave music as well. I'm all right with rhythm, but I can't hold a note for toffee. So that's what I would willingly pass over to somebody else.
Jane is with you.
I am so with you. You and me. You and me are not going to be leading music, put it that way.
Definitely not.
Let's go for some proper questions, Jane.
Yeah, I was just noticing in your book, Andy. There's a lot of moments where at PTA events you've had sponges chucked at you, and I just
Yes.
wondered why. What? What are you okay? Have you been bullied? What's going on? Like what?
I'm not psychologically scarred by these events. We're okay. We're all right. I don't need counselling afterwards. It's a great money spinner, and I think that's the biggest thing. It gave a great kind of draw in for the PTA, for the parents.
Yeah.
Kids. Somebody's offered to pay 20 quid just to tip the bucket over my head. So great way of getting money for the school.
And in terms of kind of parent relationships, I mean, in building parent relationships, things like that really matter to parents, don't they? I
Yes.
mean, because parents can be
Yeah.
tricky, can't they?
They can. I think it gives you the opportunity to see you as a human as much as kind of as a teacher. I
Yeah.
found, in the years I've taught for in primary schools, it's often, some parents have their own kind of hang-ups about school, and they bring a lot of that to the school door. They remember what their teachers and their experiences were like, and some find it really hard to form that relationship. But it is, and I always say, advocate to anybody I talk to, get out there first. Go and say, hello, morning, really pleased to meet you. I'm looking forward to teaching your child this year, and
You're
we'll get
lying,
on really
Andy.
well. Absolutely, because it just shows that you've got that approachability, and that they want.
Yeah.
Then they come and they will talk to you, and they will treat you well, and kind of and give you that respect. Particularly as an ECT, when you're an unknown quantity, they will want to come over and check you out, and they will kind of scan you up and down, and they think, who is this person I'm now leaving my child with? So it's important you kind of get ahead of the curve, really, and always try and find those opportunities to celebrate the real positives
Yeah.
for the pupils as well, because there will be those parents that have maybe the most conversations they have with their class teacher may have been very focused around things that haven't gone so well, and when they see a teacher walking towards them over the playground, they're like, oh no, what's he done today?
Yeah.
Apologies for the very gender specific one there, but it does tend to be the boys parents that have that moment. But it's about being able to walk over and say, oh, brilliant day today, really, really pleased to try, really, really hard, really pleased with him, looking forward to seeing him in the morning, have a lovely evening. And it just lets you know that you're going to celebrate those positives as well as when things aren't going quite so well.
I love that. I love that actually you can, like, you walk out and seek out and praise. That's lovely. And it's hard, isn't it? Because we talk a lot about like an open door policy, but
Yes,
that's even more proactive, isn't it? It's like an open door walk through and beyond, and of reaching
yes,
out. The true building
absolutely.
of bridges. I love that, and yeah, really excellent.
No, and it's, I think, particularly for older children, that can be trickier as well, because it's often when they get to year 5, 6 or secondary, the parents just aren't anywhere they don't bring them to school, they may not see them at the door. So getting out there or ringing home and really celebrating those positives really make a huge difference. Those relationships with parents really do.
Yeah, great advice. The other thing I noticed in your book, which I just thought was so helpful, was this recognition that, when you want to be a strong, dynamic whole class teacher, that, you can be really attracted to, in terms of class layout, like the horseshoe. But then you
Yes.
kind of wrote down kind of another alternative, which I just can you tell everybody about that other alternative? Because that really struck me, how it was explained so clearly.
About the owl shapes in the
Yeah,
classroom.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's kind of like almost like little mini horseshoes. So you've still got that space where pupils can work collaboratively, so they can talk to each other. They've got that kind of that connectedness. But equally, as a teacher, it's really easy to get in and talk to them as well, and being able to support them with their work. You can still usually get it so that every child can see you if you're at the front teaching, or they can see the whiteboard or the different resources that you may have available to them in the classroom. But it can work really, really well. But having in those smaller, kind of more kind of intimate groups, right, and still allowing for that kind of collaborative way of working, rather
yeah,
than squares where occasionally you may end up with people to their backs to the room or back to the board and they're having to turn around or shuffle their chairs around when they're working at the tables. I found it worked really, really well. It's something that kind of I evolved over time and just found it really worked for me. Although sometimes the classroom layouts don't, the actual structure and the kind of floor plan of the classroom don't always allow you to kind of fit all those in as much as you want to and have a clear pathway through, which is really important to consider. But yeah, I found it really, really helpful.
well, that is
Worked really well.
helpful, and I think we it's it's almost like the answer away from Rose or the horseshoe. It's like
Yeah.
for me, for somebody, because I haven't got a practical bone in my body, for somebody to say, look, it's the L. It was always the L. They can still see you at the front, but you can still move. Oh, that was just, it's so small. It's like most things in life. It's so
Yeah.
obvious now you say it, but it's just, it's what I needed when I was an ECT, you
I
know.
was going to say, when you're an ECT, actually what you need is
Mm,
those real pithy bits of practical advice from people who have lived and breathed it, learned through their mistakes, and that's what the book kind of gives, doesn't it? Lots of practical things that you can dip
Yeah.
into and really use in your classroom the next day.
Yeah, and that's something that I've always done. When I started the Twitter account, it has always been those really practical things. And as you said, I've experienced working with NQTs and ECTs, and they often get the similar sort of questions, similar sort of pattern to things. It's trying to just get those tips out there, those ideas, those real, like you say, real practical strategies people can do to help kind of support them with their practice as they're going through.
Yeah, love that. The chapter that really caught my attention, though, was the chapter about expectations linked to behaviour. And you spend some time talking about Glasser's work from
Yes.
1997, like the deadly habits. What are some of the deadly habits that destroy kind of positive relationships with children?
I think it's So Glasser's work. He talks about like you said, there's 7 deadly and 7 caring habits, and I always caveat it whenever I talk to people about this that we aim to be in the caring habits the majority of the time, but you will slip into those deadly habits occasionally,
Yeah, like
and particularly.
and the things like nagging, aren't they? Like nagging, like, oh my goodness, this is like my marriage habits. I think threatening, nagging.
I love that. It is, but you do drift into those things as a teacher. It's 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. You've had a tough week, and you just wish they'd remember to put a full stop at the end of a sentence. You do find yourself in that nagging sort of situation.
Yeah.
And the other thing that one of the other ones I talk about in the book is also that threatening.
Yes.
And I've seen that so often with trainee teachers, ECTs, and actually even people experience in their practice that when behaviour starts to escalate, particularly in there, you can see the stress levels of the teacher rising. it's so easy to chuck out a threat. Like, if you don't stop that now, I'm going to be sending you to the head teacher. Or, if you don't stop that now, your entire playtime's gone. Or, we're going to put you in a cannon and fire you off to Mars. We make these kind of huge threats. But the thing you have to be really mindful of is you have to be able to carry out anything that you threaten and be willing to. So it's really important that, you don't kind of go to that place. But equally, nobody is perfect, and we will drop into those moments of time. But it is trying to aim for more those caring side of things. When you are, accepting difference, you're negotiating, you're trying to build that understanding of the situation that that person is in. I think that's hugely important, and that building of that relationship that you've got with those people, so actually this is a bit out of character, or I can use these strategies to diffuse that because I know that pupil really, really well. And that makes a huge difference, to be able to say, look, I can see you really finding this tricky, or you're feeling frustrated by this, or you're feeling a bit angry. What we need to do now is we need to find another way to express that, or another way of moving that forward, because your behavior at the moment is unacceptable. And there's no issues with challenging behavior, or as a teacher saying that behavior is unacceptable, but we have that awareness that we still accept them as an individual and we want to support them, but what they're doing at that moment in time is not okay.
Yeah, I thought for an ECT, but actually a reminder for anybody in their career, what really struck me was we kind of know deep down as teachers that when we're dealing with behaviour, we need to separate the pupil from the behaviour. But what really struck me in your book is that we're always striving to keep the teacher pupil relationship intact and positive. But the bit I loved was that to keep that intact, we must separate us as the teacher from the punishment. So it kind of goes a bit like this: because you chose to hit someone, it means that you will have to, not I am going to punish you. And I just thought it's almost the other half I don't think we do very well as teachers. And that really sharpened it in my mind, actually, as I read it.
Yeah. In that chapter was actually probably the chapter that I wrote the quickest,
It's
and
the
was one
best
of the
one.
chapters that I enjoyed writing. I thoroughly enjoyed writing that one, and it kind of flowed very easily because there were so many really key important bits. And you're right, that sense of that this is what's going to happen now as a result of your behaviour, and it's them that you will have to apologise,
Yeah.
or you will have to do this, because there's a natural consequence. And I like to use the word consequences a lot, and I advocate for that in the book, as you probably noticed whenever talking to people, because all behaviour has a natural consequence. If children do go around snatching things from people, not sharing the equipment that they're using,
Yeah.
they're less likely to have other children playing with them. There's a natural consequence there, and you can have them understand that their behaviour has a consequence in that respect,
Yeah.
rather than being something that's kind of externally imposed on them. There is that look, this is the consequence of this, and actually you are going to have to apologise, but also actually what you should do differently next time. And I think that's the bit that we have to support with. It's yes, we challenge the behaviour, but what should it look like instead? What are we anticipating, or what are we expecting from them to do differently next time when they're feeling that way, or when that situation arises?
And I really love the advice about photographic evidence in the classroom. Like really, this is what it will look like. When we're
Yes.
doing a good job with this. When you're making those choices linked to, and children are always making choices all the time, and we as adults making choices all the time. But we've got a wireframe to navigate it, so
Yes, we
that
do.
like the relationship is flourishing all the time. Yeah, it was great. I love that, the positive habits to work into the tricky stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Can I
Brilliant.
move into the relationship between you as ECT mentor? In the book, there's lots of coaching moments, which I really, really liked. Um, can you tell us about your approach to coaching? What the benefits are? What does a good coaching setup really look like?
Oh, I love kind of being in that coaching situation. I think as there'll be mentors out there, or anybody out there that you will understand, or that sense of sometimes you have to be a mentor and you have to have that bit of information that you need to share to help guide. But equally, being a coach is just great because you have that moment of you're helping them to achieve it for themselves. You're helping them to realise that moment of, okay, this is how it should look. And then there's that element of full ownership in that. So it's about asking the right sort of questions for me. Okay, what do you think? Or how did that go today? Okay, what did you want to happen? What do you think you could have done differently to get to that outcome? Or, when this child responded in this way, how do you think you could have responded differently? And sometimes it's just those moments to reflect as well. But sometimes there is that element of kind of guiding as well. Okay, so let's kind of, if that situation fries again, let's work it through. What could we do differently? And so they've got a real kind of clear plan to moving forward in that way. And that's where sometimes with teaching is we get so many, we work with 30 variables in a classroom, so many things can happen throughout the day, which makes the job brilliant and it's never boring, but we can't preempt everything. So it's that opportunity then just to reflect on how it's gone, being able to anticipate, okay, if that were to happen again, and let's be honest, we've had the experience that happened once and never happened again in your teaching career. But those moments we think, actually, what could we do differently? How could we kind of phrase that slightly differently? How can we change our wording to make sure that we get the outcome that we're looking for from that situation? And linking back to the expectations thing, having a really clear, being able to give really clear, explicit instructions to pupils. So, instead of like, okay, it's lining up time, off we go, because we know what that can be like, just things like that. Whereas it's like, okay, we're about to line up now, so we're going to stand up where we are, we're going to walk quietly to the door, we're going to stand one behind the other, facing the right way. And I remember the first time I taught in EYFS in reception, it took me 3 weeks of training to get them to be able to get into a line, move to the hall, staying in the line and not just dispersing all over the place.
They don't know what a line is, Andy.
Down. No, I know, facing the right way in assembly. On the third week when I finally got it, I was like, yes, come on.
It's a win.
It is a win. It is. But it's about kind of having somebody there to kind of help talk you through it. Okay, think about those expectations. What did you want them to do? Okay, let's break that down. What do they have to do in order to be able to achieve that? Okay, so these are the steps you want them to take. Anything else we need to clarify about that? How noisy do you want it to be? Or, are you happy with a bit of noise? Or how do you want them moving? Let's make it really clear. So it's, again, you're acting as that coach just to help guide them through it. But it's about getting it from them, really, getting them to understand it. Because if you give them a process to go through, it's easy for them to replicate. Whereas sometimes as a mentor, and there are times when you have to say, actually, you need to do this because there's, safeguarding issues or, that have to just be, no, this is just the way you have to do it here. But equally, there are times when you can give them the opportunity to have that full ownership. So actually, then you're creating something that's going to continue to build over time. They've got that skill and that strategy then to move forward with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
We talked about earlier on feeling like your best isn't good enough. In the opening address, the letter to the reader at the end of it, you said your best will always be good enough. And I just wanted to unpick really whether you've had any advice that maybe as an ECT you feel like you're giving your absolute all and it's just not being seen. What can they do in that scenario?
I think it's, first of all, be kind to yourself at this time of the year because there's a huge amount coming at you. We talk about cognitive overload for pupils. Actually, for you, you've got a whole new team of colleagues you are trying to, work out and kind of build relationships with, a whole class of pupils you're trying to get to know, new systems, new policies, new routines, new information is coming at you all the time. And, sometimes just getting through to the end of the day is the best thing that you can do. But like I said, just be kind to yourself. But over time, you will start to feel more kind of in control of things. Things will become more natural and you'll be sat in the staff room when they use the acronym that you didn't know 2 weeks ago. You think, oh, I know what they're on about now. Look at me.
Yeah.
You've got those moments where you pick up on those things. You'll recognise that change in yourself. And it's about finding those opportunities. If there is something that you're good at, you're not having the opportunity to show yet, not taking on too much, because as an ECT, there can always be that reluctance to say no when somebody asks you. You think, oh, I've got to prove myself. I'm only here, I may only be on a fixed term contract initially. You think, I've got to do everything. I've got to prove myself. But only say yes to the things that you feel comfortable and confident with, and you think you are, you can genuinely add to, rather than are going to kind of cause you huge amounts of stress and anxiety going forward. So it's really being really mindful about those things. But yeah, if there's something that you think, actually, I've got a degree in music and singing, obviously, as talked
That's a
about earlier with the
lie.
music thing. That's clearly not me. But can I do a choir club after school? Something that you want to enjoy. At the end next half term, is that something I could do? Just something that gives you that sense of satisfaction as well, and that
Yeah.
recognition that lots of us feel that imposter syndrome in those positions, particularly when you're starting in a new role and you can see people looking to you being a teacher, and you're 3 weeks into your actual teaching career, whether you've done a BEd before a PGCE, it's a very different situation. You're now the person with that full accountability. It's you that people are looking for to be responsible. And I remember starting, I think, at 22, thinking I shouldn't be responsible for these children. I'm far not old enough yet. I'm not grown up enough yet to be responsible. But you do feel that sense of that. It's about reminding yourself you've earned your right to be there. You've been through the training. You've been recognised for what you can do by the school. You absolutely have every skill you need, you have inside you. But sometimes it's just, like I said, being kind to yourself, being patient, and you will absolutely get there. You really will.
This feels like advice for life for everybody, not just ECTs, Andy.
Absolutely. But
And
I'm
I,
not going to be kind to you. I've
yeah,
got
No,
a
I know.
juicy question. Can I do
go
my
on,
juicy
do
Oh,
it,
question, Jane?
do it.
we'll go
Because
for it.
you explain in the book that the early career framework from 2019 was put in place to improve teacher retention. So apparently
Yeah,
in 2016, 30% were leaving teaching within the first 5 years, which is massive, isn't it? So my
it's,
my question for you is this framework working for us in terms of teacher retention?
that is a very good question. I think there are a few teething issues potentially around it. Ultimately, I agree with the principle. There needs to be a consistent form of CPD for those at the early start of their career. I worked in a local authority that had a very active NQT network, became the ECT network at that point in time. Very active. We're very on it. I do appreciate that actually 10 miles down the road in a different catchment area, it was a very different experience. So, and that sort of thing shouldn't be a postcode lottery. It should be open to everybody. Everybody should have that investment in CPD. I think where there's still work to be done is around the workload associated with the programme. I think with the ECF coming first, and then there was the introduction of the core content framework for initial teacher training, that just seemed to be a very kind of just slightly reworded version of the early career framework. And I think lots of people who've trained in a PGCE or a BA route are coming out thinking, I've done this already, I've covered
Yeah.
this, and it feels a little bit. And there's an argument that actually now they're getting it contextualized into their environment, but still it feels it's more work and it's a repetition of what I've already done. And with last year being kind of the first kind of full year it kind of ran for the 2 years, the materials were not always fully there. So there was a very structured set route that ECTs had to follow their way through. And for myself, I worked with ECTs that actually didn't always need those bits at those points in time. So there needs to be a greater level of flexibility in that respect, that actually this is where you are now. These are the opportunities you need now in order then to be kind of building and developing at that point where they are. And whilst there is a role there for the induction tutor to be able to put some of that support in place, I think with the demands of the ECF, what it's asking to do, I think there needs to be that greater level of flexibility there going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree
Do you
with that. And then also, I think we know deep down, don't we, that good CPD, once we've had like that a base level set of training, it should be tailored to people's
Yes.
strengths and weaknesses and what they
Yes.
need. And
Yeah,
there's this sort of there's a beating heart to it. It kind of keeps coming back, and it's not
I agree.
gone forever. But another thing that our more experienced teachers, even if they're not mentoring an ECT, if they've got an ECT in their school, they need to know about these materials so they know the pressures of an ECT. And I think I was going to ask you this, but what's come through for me today, Andy, is that like your unique selling point, because I talk about unique selling points because you actually say in your book, if you're an ECT, going for an interview, before your interview point, if you're asked your unique selling point in an interview, what would you say? I mean, I think yours, Andy, is just it's caring and kindness and a deep understanding about how ECTs need coaching on
Yeah.
kind of crystal clear explaining. That's really come through today. Like, that is where a lot of new to the profession can lose their way, because actually everything has to be deconstructed uh,
Yeah.
and predicted for like almost like misconceptions, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree, and it's a difficult ask with the early career framework as well. The work on mentors as well. You know, the not the burden, but the workload for mentors going through, and it's having that time and that priority. And I was always really lucky. I thought, you know, choosing to have time out during the school day with the NQTs and ECTs that I work with, so I could work alongside them during that time and had that time protected, because I know how valuable it is. But I'm aware that that's not always the case, and sometimes mentors that work with wear many different hats. You know, at times I was a deputy head. You know, so you do wear different hats when you're doing that. But it's being able to really focus and think, actually, you know, this is my priority at this moment in time. This time is mine to work with this ECT, to be able to support this person at the start of their career, to help them develop, to help them to grow, and being really get to know them. And it's about that sense of building relationships again. I'm a hugely relationship driven person, and you know, through that, whether with the pupils or with your peers, because actually by having really strong relationships with people and having those, in knowing them really well, you can then, you know, have those challenging conversations. You know how best to support them. You know where they need to go next, and actually the strategies you can take in order to get them there. And I think that's something that's really, really important. I would advocate to anybody, you know, mentoring anybody at any stage of their career, it's getting to know them and understanding where they are, and you know what their strengths are, and how you can then build on that. I work a lot with trainee teachers, and at the start of the year, we'll always talk about, you know, we're here to make you the best teacher you can be. We're not here to make you carbon copies of us, because it's really important that we use their strengths. And same with ECTs, and actually experienced leaders as well. They need to know, actually, these are my strengths. I'm not going to be the same leader as the person down the road, because we've all got different skills. We have to be able to develop and nurture those skills we have to move forward and to be the best that we can be.
I
Yeah.
really like that. I really like that. That seems a lovely note to end our interview on. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really interesting. How about you, Jen?
Insightful.
Have you
I
enjoyed
love
yourself?
it.
That's
Yeah.
the word I was looking for. Insightful.
And Andy's book, You've Got This. We'll put a link to the podcast about it. Every school with early career teachers need this book. It's, in fact, it's got so many great nuggets in it. I loved reading it. And thank you for being on the podcast, Andy.
You're very welcome. It's been an absolute privilege to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on. Real pleasure to meet you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
That was great, wasn't it, Jane?
Love that.
And we highly recommend the book. So let's make sure that we can get some winners. So, this week's competition, you need to get back to us finishing the sentence. The best thing about having an ECT in school, dot, dot, dot.
Love that. Instagram, Twitter, X, at Reading Rocks, at Jane Considine. You can find us. We're out there. We've got a lot of social media footprint. Get in touch. We've had lots of getting in touches. It's been great. And that has really buoyed us along. And
Oh,
I'm
we've
going
got some winners from last week who did get in
Oh,
touch with us.
come
Shall I tell you
on
about
then.
those?
Yeah, would
So
you?
we've got 2 winners of last week's book, The 100 Ideas for Art by Adele Darlington. So on Twitter, we had Mrs. Grant, and she said, art matters because it reflects life.
Oh, good one.
And then a winner over on Instagram, Steph Kimball, art matters because it gives us a way to see the world through others' eyes.
Oh, that's a bit out there, isn't it? That's a bit deep. Right. I'm going to finish on my little wonder of words from this book, The Last Bear by Hannah Gold.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and it's it's just so poignant, this part. I'm just going to have a read of it. It's about a paragraph long. And it's the moment that April is on the bear's back and they've just leapt and they're trying to leap across to the summit. And it's this moment. And then he leapt. He leapt through the sky as he soared to the summit. And time stopped. There was nothing but this moment, this one precious, beautiful, suspended moment. When she clung onto the bear, where bear clung onto her, and where the pair of them flew through the sky, everything was drenched in silence, the silence of big, momentous things. The moment lasted forever, maybe even a lifetime. And during this endless time, lots of thoughts ran through April's head. How the summit seemed to stay achingly out of reach. How the bottom of the mountain looked an awfully long way down. How, despite her fear, she instinctively trusted the bear with her life. And most of all, how this had been the best, most perfect summer of her life.
Oh, so good.
So good. And in there, April's having this perfect summer. It was better than mine, I think. That washing up, but it just that phrase of like the silence of big momentous things, that we've all felt that, haven't you, when just something happens and it just feels like there's no other noise. When an important kiss with somebody you love, or you get named for an award, or a happy tear moment, that just before you open the envelope, I love it. The silence of big, momentous things.
Oh, it's
Heather,
brilliant.
what's
Cinematic.
yours? It is
Well,
cinematic.
Jane, I've been feeling like I've been tasked with making you joyful, Jane.
Thank
So
you.
it's a task I'm taking on. I was gonna read from this book, which is called "Find Your Happy" by Emily Coxhead, but I'm just
Please don't
flashing it
read
up
that.
as a recommendation for you. What
You're worried
mine?
about me.
Mine isn't a poignant read. Mine's a bit different. So I'm going to read a poem for you from Smile Out Loud, 25 happy poems
Yes.
from Joseph Coelho. And it's beautifully illustrated by Daniel Gray Barnett. But this is a nice, fun way to end the podcast this week. So this one's called The Laugh.
Do
For
it.
those of you who are a bit posher than I, The Laugh. Are you ready?
Yeah.
It started as a tickle, as a wriggle on my lips. It turned into a giggle, a wiggle of the hips. It turned into a jitter, a titter of the teeth. My face is turning red and it's begging for release. It gasps into a guffaw, into a great big belly laugh. If I whoop any louder, call the security staff. Now it's spreading to my friends. It snickers, chuckles, and snorts. If we roar any louder, we'll get a school report. Now our sides are splitting. We're on the floor laughing. We cannot stop. We will not stop. It's threatening to choke. And all because of the telling of a wonderfully silly joke.
Oh, that is great. Is
Oh,
he
it's
still?
nice, isn't it?
Yeah, is he still our poet laureate? Yes.
Children's laureates, yes,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
venturing
Great.
around the country, the nation, joining lots of libraries, which is just brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, and he does some great stuff on YouTube. Some, lots of performance work. Just wonderful. Yeah, love that one. Are you a snorter when you get going on your?
Yeah, I've got a really dirty laugh, Jane. And I think the older I get, there is a bit of the snorting going on. I don't know whether that's a freedom where you just think, oh, I don't care. I'm laughing, I'm going with it.
Well, I've got to that age when sometimes a bit of wee comes out, but hey.
I'm not there yet. I so
No.
am. I so am.
Oh dear, yeah. I'm not going on that trampoline.
No, trampolines are a no-go for women who have children of a certain age. Yeah, let's not even go there, Jane. Let's go back to the ECTs who are all young and tight.
Yeah, and their pelvic floors are intact. Oh, yeah. Are we allowed to say bitch on our PG rating? Don't know. Might have to cut that bit off. Oh, it's always a pleasure. I always come
Oh,
in such a grump, and you always manage to cheer me up. Oh, I do love it. It's been a great
it's been
week.
a great episode, but I think it's time to say goodbye, so we better do it, Jane.
Yeah, do it. It is Heartbursts
From Jane and big love
from Heather.
See you next week.
See you next week.